What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, and today I am concluding the weekend of March 7th with the latest offering from Brazilian blackened heavy metal slash speed metal one-man band Whipstriker, Cry of Extinction. This also, like I said, came out on March 7th, this time on Hell's Headbangers. And if I recall, this is, I believe, the 5th studio full-length overall from Whipstriker. And this is actually the first time I've ever sat down and listened to an album. And this is the first album they've done, or he's done, Victor, he's basically the main guy behind the band, his first one in 7 years. Now, the only reason I heard about this band was courtesy of talking with James McBain from Hellripper when we were talking the first time on the Horseman podcast. Talked a little bit about Whipstriker, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll give this band a shot, but just never got around to it until now with a new album, and I'm kind of glad I waited until a new album so I can get an idea of what this project is all about. So, with Cry of Extinction, after the intro track, we get into the title track, and, well, granted, it starts off kind of weird with, like, synths. It does eventually go straight into punky D beats and like classic metal, speed metal riffs, and that's pretty much one of the main gears, or really it's the main gear on this album, is like classic heavy metal and speed metal riffs with like punky D beats and a lot of snotty songwriting chops going on here. And I gotta admit, Victor's vocals, I think, were a huge standout on here, and I'll just go ahead and say it. His vocals instantly remind me of Kronos from Venom. Then again, musically, there's quite a bit of Venom going on here, musically, from what I'm hearing all over the map. Six Eyes Crow Division. I actually like how it starts off with this pretty cool build, and then into like big D-beat gallops and lead melodies that are just all over the map. But then it does shift gears to like a more classic, like rock and roll kind of vibe, like, dare I say, a little bit of like modern Darkthrone, like probably late 2000s Darkthrone to now, kind of has that feeling of like, let's just rock out on some of these riffs and just have a good time with it. Although I gotta admit, I'll touch more about this whenever I talk about what I didn't like about the album or the complaints that I had. But there was a really cool drum build that leads to the final part of the track, and it was really cool. I don't know if Victor has a drummer on here or he's using a drum machine. Regardless, it was a pretty cool moment. Rush of Fury, this one just goes for mostly like a blackened thrash kind of feel, like very reminiscent of a band like Hellripper or even Toxic Holocaust, where it's just this sleazy yet fast and furious thrashy song with that blackened sort of aesthetic on top, you can say. And then you get into a track like World War VI, which I gotta admit, whenever I first heard the opening riffs and the rhythms, I thought, did I somehow accidentally switch over to the song Nightmare by Venom? Because the rhythm and the riff that opens this track and really kind of carries on for the first half of the song was very close to sounding exactly like Venom's Nightmare, which is not really a bad thing because that is one of my favorite Venom songs, but I was like, did I accidentally switch over to that song somehow, or whatever happened? But cool drums that followed the pre-chorus before it gets into the chorus. And of course, it's really sleazy. And then it goes back to being more of like that classic metal, speed metal kind of vibe with the D-beats showing up towards the end. And then into the second half of the album, where songs up until we get to the closer get shorter. Heart Rippers, you get this like interesting atonal melody that comes in before it gets right into like punky D beats and riff work, of course. And then Kalu's New World, there's two A's in there, but Kalu's New World, again, more of those classic heavy metal riffs, and it's up tempo before it just transitions back into blackened thrash. But there's also more tremolo riffs going on here. Like, for the most part, a lot of these riffs kind of follow the thrashy, dare I say, classic metal, speed metal kind of riffs, but on Kalu's New World, you get more tremolos, kind of adding a little bit more to the black metal vibe. And then it follows with a pretty solid cover of Destruction's Satan's Vengeance, I should say. Kind of ironic, I just talked about Destruction's new album a couple of days ago, and here we are with a band covering an old song of theirs. Kind of strange how things work. But then you get into the closer, Military Scum, the longest track on the album at over 10 minutes long, and it kind of goes for pretty much everything this album has to offer. It's got your like classic rock and roll riffs and rhythms, 80s melodies, your speed metal D beats, it gets thrashy, you get classic metal gallops, even a clean melody, which it's the only time you get something different in terms of the melody, where it's more clean instead of like distorted melody. And I forgot to talk about with the lead work. I thought the leads on this album, when they do show up, are awesome. They're just flying. And a lot of times, especially on the title track, World War VI, those two songs, and even Six Eyes Crow Division, harmonized leads, which I really, really like harmonized leads when done to perfection. Production-wise, it's raw, it's gritty. It almost reminds me of like 80s Bathory production, like I would say Under the Sign of Black Mark and Blood, Fire, Death, like that kind of production, but with a completely different, well, not completely different, but a little bit of a different style of music than what Bathory was doing in the late 80s. But of course, I love the Chronos style vocals on here. Yeah, this album, it's fun. However, as far as complaints go, I only had a couple. Back to Six Eyes Crow Division, there's a moment, I think it's in the second verse, where there's just these weird effects going on with the guitars, where it would sound like muffled and then like more clear, and then it goes muffled, clear. I don't know what was going on there, if that was done for dramatic effect or whatever, but I didn't like that. And then I would say in Military Scum, despite the song itself being good, I felt some of the transitions between sections are way too sharp and just didn't feel like a natural progression. Like, it would go from these like classic metal D beats, and then it just sharply transitions back to like the rock and roll vibe. Like there was no drum fill or melody to transition out of the D beats into the classic rock and roll vibe. Or it would happen again where it would go into like classic metal gallops, or go from classic metal gallops to the clean melody or the thrashier moments. It just didn't feel natural. But overall, this was still a pretty damn fun album for the most part. I will give this a 3.5. I thought this was really good stuff for the most part. It's just, yeah, those complaints do kind of drag the album down just a little bit for me, but this is still really, really good stuff, and it's fun to listen to. So if you are a fan of Venom, later Dark Throne, I would say like Hell Ripper and Midnight, check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Until next time, thank you for watching. Keep your horns high and your dreams wet.